Even before taking office, President-elect Donald Trump is already making waves in the world of geopolitics. In late December, he published a post on Truth Social saying, quote, "For the purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity," unquote. With over 2 million square kilometers of landmass, Greenland is the largest island in the world. Despite its large size, it is sparsely populated, with approximately 60,000 permanent residents. For comparison, that's approximately the same population as Dubuque, Iowa. This is not the first time Trump has expressed a desire to buy the Arctic island. Back in 2019, during his first term, he floated a similar proposal. Greenland was officially colonized by Denmark in the 18th century. Danish Vikings had previously landed in Greenland as early as the 10th century. Today, Greenland is still part of the Kingdom of Denmark, although they have some degree of self-governance with their own parliament and prime minister. When Trump initially floated the idea of buying Greenland in 2019, the Danish and Greenland governments immediately rejected the idea, saying that the island is not for sale. Trump was so enraged by the rejection that he canceled a previously planned state visit to Denmark. In this video, we'll look at why Trump wants to buy Greenland, whether it's even possible to buy a country, and if so, how much it would cost. As for the question of whether or not countries can be bought and sold, the short answer is yes. The most analogous example is the US purchase of Alaska from Russia in 1867. The United States paid a consideration of $7.2 million for Alaska. This was equivalent to approximately $130 million in today's money adjusted for inflation. In the early 1800s, Russia settled Alaska. The primary purpose of the settlement was for the hunting of otters, whose fur was very valuable at the time. The Russian colony in Alaska was very small. At the peak, approximately 2,500 Russian settlers lived there, almost all of whom worked in the fur trade. In the 1850s, Russia suffered a costly defeat in the Crimean War. Large war-related expenses put Russia's state finances in a precarious position. It's important to remember that at the time, Britain still controlled Canada. The Tsar feared a British invasion of Alaska. Alaska is 4,000 miles away from Moscow, making it very difficult to defend. By selling Alaska to America, Russia was able to remove this strategic liability, while also raising much-needed cash. The purchase of Alaska was approved by US President Andrew Johnson and executed by his Secretary of State William Seward. The purchase was widely ridiculed by Johnson's political opponents. They mockingly called Alaska Seward's icebox, saying the Russians duped Johnson into paying a considerable sum of money for a desolate tundra with little economic value. Alaska ended up being extremely valuable, with vast reserves of oil and other natural resources, but this was not known at the time of the acquisition. The situation with Greenland today is very different. Denmark is not facing financial difficulties, and Greenland is not at risk of invasion, so they have no reason to sell. The Danish Prime Minister who rejected Trump's proposal in 2019 is still in office today. She is all but guaranteed to reject any similar proposal. The main industries in Greenland are fishing, tourism, and mining. Greenland has sizable deposits of certain gemstones, graphite, and other valuable minerals. Additionally, the Danish government provides approximately $500 million of subsidies to the island every year. This represents half of the Greenlandic government's budget and almost 20% of the island's GDP. Thanks mainly to productive fishing waters and generous subsidies from Denmark, Greenland's GDP is quite high at almost $60,000 per person. Despite the high GDP figure, life on the island can be very difficult. Substantially all consumer goods have to be imported. This translates to very high prices and limited selection. Things that many people take for granted, such as ordering random stuff on Amazon, eating at McDonald's, or even playing video games with high-speed internet, are not available to people living in Greenland. With limited forms of entertainment, many people turn to alcohol to pass the time. Greenland has one of the highest rates of alcoholism in the world, with over half of young men reporting that they drink excessively. This has unfortunately contributed to a mental health epidemic, with tragic consequences. Despite its natural beauty, Greenland is a desolate place whose government requires massive subsidies to function. Given these problems, why does Donald Trump want to buy it so badly? Interestingly, around the same time that Trump tweeted about wanting to buy Greenland, he also released the following tweet about the Panama Canal. On December 21st, Trump said, quote, "The U.S. has a vested interest in the secure, efficient, and reliable operation of the Panama Canal. The canal was given not for the benefit of others, but merely as a token of cooperation with us in Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to us in full and without question." Unquote. The Panama Canal was constructed in the early 1900s under the leadership of the United States and primarily with U.S. funding. In 1999, control of the canal was handed to the government of Panama. The canal is very important to global trade as it allows ships to travel between Asia and the east coast of the United States. Approximately $270 billion worth of cargo passes through the canal each year. Approximately 1,000 cargo ships pass through the canal each month. Every time a ship passes through, it has to pay a fee to the Panama Canal Authority, which is owned by the government of Panama. The fee is a few $100,000 per passage. The Panama Canal Authority generates approximately $5 billion of fees per year. Panama's total GDP is $80 billion, so the revenue from the canal is very significant indeed. In fact, revenue from the canal covers approximately 1/4 of Panama's government budget. Trump is upset because he thinks that Panama is charging excessive fees for use of the canal. The United States has no legal basis to take back control of the canal. Trump's statements about repossessing the canal should not be taken literally. This is just his way of bringing attention to the issue and setting the stage for more nuanced negotiations with Panama. While the Panama government sets the shipping passage fees, some things are beyond their control. For example, in late 2023 and early 2024, there was a major drought in the country which caused the canal's water level to fall. When the water levels are too low, it becomes unsafe for large ships to pass through. This caused a massive decrease in the number of ships that could pass through the canal, which disrupted trade and greatly increased shipping costs. So what does any of this have to do with Greenland? Prior to the construction of the Panama Canal, if you wanted to send a cargo ship from Asia to the east coast of the United States, you had to go all the way around South America. For example, a journey from Shanghai to New Jersey is approximately 19,000 miles. The Panama Canal greatly decreases the length of that journey to 12,000 miles. But even this is not the shortest route. The shortest route is the so-called Northwest Passage, which goes above Canada. This is only 10,000 miles, and you don't need to pay any fees to the Panama Canal Authority. Historically, the Northwest Passage has not been a feasible option due to the large amounts of Arctic sea ice. It's too dangerous for a regular cargo ship to traverse. Thanks to climate change, the extent of Arctic sea ice has declined substantially over the past few decades. If current trends continue, it may soon be feasible for cargo ships to traverse the Northwest Passage, at least during some times of the year. There are also potentially hundreds of billions of dollars worth of oil and natural gas in the Arctic, which could theoretically become accessible as the sea ice melts. But this is largely speculative, as the current ice conditions prevent detailed geological studies. The Northwest Passage goes through Greenland's territorial waters. This is the main reason why Trump wants Greenland. Controlling Greenland helps to secure control of the Northwest Passage. With all that being said, there's no reason to believe that the Greenlandic or Danish authorities would ever prevent US cargo ships from traversing the Northwest Passage. The United States Space Force already operates a base in Greenland, thus securing influence in the region. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. Do you think the United States should buy Greenland? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.